Regarding the most polarizing cinematic visions in the past decade or so, it's hard not to think of Cloud Atlas, the ambitious, century-spanning sci-fi epic directed by Tom Tykver and the Wachowskis sisters. Also recorded as one of the most expensive indie films ever, the bold spiritual journey at the heart of Cloud Atlas divided audiences down the middle, leaving many to scratch their heads and ponder what the fate of the characters meant in the end. After all, the star-studded ensemble played multiple roles in the film across various timelines, with the story spanning from 1849 to 2321 in ways that intrinsically cross over and connect to a cerebral puzzle piece for viewers to solve. As such, a movie like Cloud Atlas warrants repeat viewings like no other. Although recent reappraisals of the film have been more favorable, a lot went into the making of Cloud Atlas that even the most hardcore fanatics may have missed. Between the development of the project, independent financing, and rising budgetary costs, to the altered shooting schedule resulting from an A-list injury, last-minute character changes, and casting decisions, to the division of directorial labor, music compositions, and Warner Brothers nearly abandoning the entire project several times, why not look up to the sky and wonder once and for all, what the f happened to this movie? For those unaware, Cloud Atlas is adapted from the 2004 novel of the same name by English author David Mitchell. In 2005, star Natalie Portman read the novel and gave a copy of the book to Lana Wachowski while they were making V for Vendetta. Lana was instantly hooked by the premise of the lofty project, and by 2006, Lana and Lily each penned a screenplay draft. Around that same time, the Wachowskis invited their friend and fellow filmmaker Tom Tykver to collaborate on subsequent drafts of the script. Portman was also familiar with Tykver, having worked together in a segment for the romantic anthology Paris Je T'aime. In 2009, Tykver confirmed that he intended to work on the project with the Wachowskis, who had obtained the rights to the novel at the time. According to the New Yorker, Tykver and the Wachowskis took a vacation in Costa Rica to iron out the script and focus the 6 tales into one unified whole. The result bloomed into a Zen garden of index cards, in which countless scenes from the novel were printed onto color-coordinated note cards that were constantly rearranged by the filmmakers until the story found its shape.
What is an ocean but a multitude of drops?
During the movie's 4-year developmental period, Natalie Portman was attached to star in the film as the character that ultimately went to Korean actress Doona Bae. The primary reason Portman was forced to bow out was her pregnancy. In June 2010, Tykver began recruiting A-list talent to play the supremely challenging multi-character arcs featured in the 6 interconnected stories. Tom Hanks and Halle Berry were among the first to be approached for the film, 2 bona fide Oscar winners who helped secure independent financing. Meanwhile, James McAvoy and Sir Ian McKellen were also asked to play parts in the picture, although neither signed on.
I know.
By April 2011, Tykver officially agreed to co-direct Cloud Atlas. Hanks and Berry were joined by actors Hugo Weaving, Jim Broadbent, Ben Whishaw, Doona Bae, and Susan Sarandon. As for Hugh Grant, he joined the cast just 1 day before principal photography commenced. Grant also convinced the filmmakers to add him to the 4th story, set in 2012 London, after his characters were limited to 5 chapters.
All right.
Despite the star-studded cast the filmmakers rounded up, the risky nature of the material made it very difficult to secure funding. As such, the Wachowskis waived their directorial fees and invested $7 million of their own money into the project, indicating how passionate they were. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers nearly pulled out and canceled the project several times before filming even began.
Off somewhere.
You bet I am. To the land of the living.
when they expressed concerns about the escalating costs and box office uncertainties. According to the Wachowskis, Warner Brothers calls and, through our agent, says they've looked at the math and decided that they don't like this deal. They're pulling all of the money away, rescinding the offer. I was shaking. I heard, "Are you saying the movie is dead?" They were like, "Yes, the movie is dead." As a result of Warner Brothers wavering, a huge portion of the budget came from the German government and various German production companies. In May 2011, Variety reported that the budget for Cloud Atlas had bloomed to a whopping $140 million. Quite a price tag for a wholly original independent movie not based on a built-in IP. The Wachowskis credit Tom Hanks for enthusiastically championing the movie and never giving up on it, even when it seemed more and more improbable. It's worth noting that Hanks was initially drawn to the project after having a conversation about two other fictional masterpieces with the directors in his office while casting was underway. Hanks was reportedly reading Herman Melville's epic Moby Dick at the time. Following a lengthy discussion about the novel, Lana pointed to a poster of Kubrick's 2001 hanging in Hank's office and said, "Moby Dick and this, that's what we want to do." After originally expressing reluctance about joining the project, Hanks instantly said, "I'm in." Somewhat ironically, Melville is referenced by Timothy Cavendish to Dermot in Cloud Atlas. After reworking the financial figures through tax credits and government incentives, the budget was eventually reduced to roughly $102 million. By the time marketing and distribution costs were factored in, the overall budget for Cloud Atlas was roughly $146 million.
I know.
Given the geographical expanse of the movie, the massive logistical undertaking required filming to take place in various countries across multiple continents. Both real locations and fabricated studio sets were used in conjunction with each other. Principal photography on Cloud Atlas began on September 16, 2011, and lasted until December of that same year. Filming began in Germany, where Studio Babelsberg served as the base camp for the entire production. Locations included Berlin, Dusseldorf, and Saxon, Switzerland. Other filming locations in Europe took place in Glasgow and Edinburgh. Believe it or not, the city of Glasgow doubled for the portions of the film set in San Francisco and London. For the Big Island and Pacific Island storylines, filming took place on the island of Majorca, off the coast of Spain. As for the opening scene of the film, in which Adam meets Henry Goose, filming took place on Sa Calobra Beach in Majorca. When the ship was seen docking in the Pacific Island sequence, filming occurred in Port de Sawyer. Even more interesting than the film locations is how the directorial duties were divided. Rather than working as one unit, Tom Tykver went off with one film crew and was responsible for directing the film segments that took place in 1936, 1973, and 2012.
Oops. Busted.
Meanwhile, Lana and Lily recruited a separate film crew to simultaneously set off to direct the stories in 1849, 2144, and 2321. Oddly enough, Tykver and the Wachowskis were only on set together one time the entire shoot. When one of Tykver's actors fell ill on the day of filming, he was forced to cancel and had enough free time to visit Lana and Lily on the set and watch them work for a day. Despite producing segments independent of each other, it's a true testament to all the directors here that the film retains a unified vision and feels like one contiguous whole. Remember, Cloud Atlas is one of the few movies in cinematic history to have 3 directors credited for the same movie. Yet, it feels like the focused work of a single-minded auteur thanks to the directors working together closely during the post-production and editing process. As for the directorial differences between the 3, Halle Berry noted, "Tom Tykver talked before we shot, and Lana and Lily had you shoot first, and then they talked about what they saw you did. They added their opinion and you did it again. It was very different, but they had one cohesive vision. They were very clear about the movie they were making." Meanwhile, Hanks found the Wachowskis so pleasant and in control while making the movie that he began referring to them as mom and dad due to how well they worked together and fostered a cordial, family-like atmosphere. Now, one of the biggest production shakeups on Cloud Atlas occurred after Halle Berry suddenly broke 5 bones in her foot less than 48 hours before she was scheduled to begin filming. The movie was originally intended to be shot in chronological order. However, due to Berry's abrupt injury, plans hastily changed and the film was shot out of sequence. Berry was mortified that she would be fired and replaced by another actor. Ultimately, Berry went on to credit Tom Hanks for nursing her back to health while making the movie. To inhabit the physical appearance of each different character, the main cast underwent 3 days of wardrobe and makeup tests before cameras rolled. According to Hanks, you'd walk in and you'd see 6 or 7 different versions of the character. Then you, the director, and the 2 heads of the makeup crews would start picking and choosing, and you'd slowly build it with their help. And at the end, you're looking at a different person. Part of the physical transformations that actors experienced involved contact lenses to alter eye color and appearance. According to Susan Sarandon, there were 2 separate teams of contact lens handlers on set at all times. Another cool tidbit about Cloud Atlas pertains to its casting director, Laurie Kennedy. Because the movie lives and dies through the stellar performances of its international cast, the Wachowskis were so grateful for Kennedy's work that they honored her with an official producer credit. Speaking of amazing jobs, one of the most universally praised aspects of the movie includes the score and soundtrack, which includes over 2 hours of original music. For those unaware, Tom Tykver composed the score along with his longtime musical partners Reinhold Heil and Johnny Klimek, a collective known as Pale 3 that had arranged music for many of Tykver's previous films. Pale 3 also created music for the Wachowskis' Matrix Revolutions, almost a decade before the filmmakers joined forces on Cloud Atlas. The music for Cloud Atlas was recorded in Leipzig, Germany. Unfortunately, the soundtrack to Cloud Atlas was received far more favorably than the daring visionary movie itself.
Ain't no blade can protect you from the true truth.
Despite premiering to a 10-minute standing ovation at the Toronto International Film Festival in September 2012, Cloud Atlas deeply divided critics and performed disastrously at the domestic box office when it officially opened in October 2012. Although it was expected to be a smash hit, the movie earned an abysmal $27.1 million. That's against a $146 million budget. While Cloud Atlas ultimately grossed a total of $130.5 million worldwide, the movie is still considered a financial failure as one of the most expensive independent movies ever produced. What's extra galling about the movie's poor reception is how the Wachowskis broke their no-press policy to promote the picture, going so far as to introduce the movie along with Tykver in a 6-minute trailer that Lana and Lily wrote, produced, directed, shot, and edited. In the end, their promotional efforts mattered little when it came to the movie's underwhelming box office performance. Adding insult to injury, both Time Magazine and The Village Voice named Cloud Atlas the worst movie of 2012. And yet, in retrospect, Cloud Atlas has become a bit less polarizing and more popular in the past decade. Beyond the critical reassessments of the film, Tom Hanks continues to claim that Cloud Atlas was one of the most enjoyable times he's ever had making a movie, right up there with A League of Their Own and Castaway. Hanks also stated that Cloud Atlas is one of his favorite movies that he's ever starred in, and one of the only films he's been in that he's seen more than twice, calling the experience magical. Alas, despite the magical outcome Cloud Atlas produced at the time, the bold and unique vision by Tom Tykver and the Wachowskis, they never received the credit they deserve for making such a daring, cinematic expression of the human condition. Despite the passion and painstaking efforts made to bring an original independent epic to the masses, 2012 marked a transitional period in Hollywood where even the most talented and proven filmmakers stood little chance of competing with the likes of soulless comic book tentpoles and formulaic superhero movies made for children. The saddest part about what the happened to Cloud Atlas is that it proved there was less of an appetite for original, cerebrally challenging epics than there was for mindless entertainment based on pre-established properties. Not to sound too gloomy as we ring in a new year, but if such a troubling trend doesn't reverse soon, the true artistry of filmmakers like Tykver and the Wachowskis will continue to be an endangered species in the future of Hollywood.
I know.
I will not be subjected to criminal